I'm NurseBob. Today I'm going to talk about protection of your health information, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, otherwise known as HIPAA. I am the sort of the designated decision maker for my mother. She's elderly, and at this point her memory is such that she really can't remember what's going on at times, and so she asked me to help manage her health care. So we were at a doctor's appointment just a few days ago and went into the waiting room, and there's a sign up there that says, excuse our delay, we're converting over to a new electronic system for managing our medical records. Well, okay, that's good. I was a software engineer before I became a nurse. And frankly, I'm a fan of electronic data management and the electronic health records. Well, I'm a fan of the idea. I'm not a fan of most of the implementations. In fact, most of what I've seen are pretty poorly done. They're hard to use. They don't protect data very well, particularly. They're not necessarily encrypted. There's a whole bunch of issues around that whole topic. But I'm going to talk about a more specific instance. This was with my mother on this appointment. We waited the extra half hour due to their transition, and I get it. Some of this software is very difficult to use, so it's got its own way of thinking about things. Software engineers and healthcare providers really don't live in the same world, and so software engineers often make decisions about how healthcare providers should do their job, which are pretty much out of touch with how healthcare providers do, in fact, do their job. But at any rate, eventually the medical assistant opened the door, called out our names, and we started walking down the hall, and she's got this nice little tablet, touchpad. But I noticed on all the doors, where you would normally have seen the manila folder, the color-coded manila folder with a name, and that was about it. Now there's a tablet on every one of these doors, the 6 exam rooms as we're walking down the hallway. And plainly displayed is the patient's name, their chief complaint, which is, why are they there? And, a synopsis of their medical history. Basically, everything that they probably don't want me or anybody else to know about their health. So as we're walking down the hall, I look to the medical assistant and say, this is a HIPAA violation. This is a violation of the Health Portability and Accountability Act. They're not being accountable. They're not making appropriate efforts to protect their patients' health information. She just looked at me like I was, from some other planet. So we end up in the examination room, and she leaves us to hang out a little bit longer, and ultimately the doctor comes into the room, and I have to admit he was at least amenable to the idea that maybe there was a problem. I pointed out to him that, this is a HIPAA violation, and if you just take and turn those tablets so that they face the door, you'll have probably solved at least one of the major issues with that particular health problem, privacy problem. So what can you do about this? I mean, when the HIPAA Act was passed back in the 90s, really your data resided either on paper charts, in fact a lot of it still does, or it was in some mainframe database monitored by these professional engineers, and in both cases not a whole lot of people had access to your data. And for that matter, there was no easy way to distribute it to the world at large. It was just it sort of sat there, and it was relatively safe just because of the way it was stored. Of course, the act was passed during the infancy of the internet. So what do we have now? Well, we have an act that one of the things it wanted to focus on was the efficient transmission of data between healthcare providers, health insurance companies, and the government, because everybody's interested in managing the money as well as health histories. Well, there's an issue with that, because a lot of the people that had been doing this data management, whether it was paper records or in these large institutions, they're kind of lax about their security to the extent that since nobody really had access to it, and a lot of people really weren't interested in it, they didn't develop the habits that you probably really need. And you know, the evidence of that is like in this doctor's office. The medical assistant was pretty clueless about what I was talking about. So you know, there's an educational component to this. So what's happened since then? Well, of course, now you know your data is available in these systems. It's on laptops, as you know, and analysts are looking at it. And I'm certain that you know, you've heard the reports about, you know, stolen laptop and the data's not encrypted and maybe it didn't even have a password to protect it. You know, that's unforgivable. So this should not be happening. That's really where the situation stands. You know, what can you do to protect yourself? You know, with the large institution, there's probably not a whole heck of a lot you can do. You're going to have to trust that their professionals are professional and they've got the appropriate firewalls up and, you know, that they manage who's accessing their data. But, you know, if it's your doctor's office and they are doing, as this one physician was doing, converting from one system to another, you can ask questions. You can say, hey, you know, what are you doing to protect my health information? Procedurally, what are you doing to make sure that nobody can, you know, access it from the outside? What are you doing to make sure that your employees aren't, you know, copying the data and selling it? A lot of this information, particularly since it frequently has social security numbers and addresses that are of great interest to a number of people committing fraud out there, that data is valuable, let alone your health data. And you know, the truth is, once this stuff has been published on the internet, it's out there. There's really no getting it back. So it's okay to ask this doctor or their, you know, their office manager, what are you doing to make sure my data is secure? And if you don't like the answers, you know, ask them to pull your data and find a different doctor. So that's really all I have to say right now. But be aware, you know, that data is yours, it's important, it's valuable, and it can impact your job and your livelihood and, you know, just how your life goes from here. So take care, stay well, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks. I'm NurseBob.